Praise be to God, the forgiving and the compassionate. Praise be to God who knows all hidden things. Praise be to God who created the whole universe and managed to wedge his mercy into every tiny dust speck. Nothing is so strange it cannot be true, and no story so unlikely that it shouldn't be told. No lie has a place in a story, for every tale is a magnetic levitation train that leads directly to the capital city of the truth. There are three types of people in the world. The first learn from experience, and those people are wise. The second learn from the experiences of others, and those people are happy. And the third learn from no place at all, and these people, my dear friend, are fools. This is the mother of all stories. The wise shall learn from it, the happy shall delight from it, and the fools shall be bamboozled by it. Long, long time ago, in a faraway land, lived an extremely handsome man called Hassan of Basra. And Basra, back then, same as now, is a city in the southern part of Iraq. And it is located on the crossroads between the Mediterranean and the trade routes towards China. Hassan was so charming that women from far and close competed for his attention. Everywhere he went, he received gifts, love poems, party invitations, and even from the most confident of admirers, marriage proposals. Everywhere he went, he was lavish with sly winks, loaded smiles, and the type of attention that made every other man present feel uncomfortable. What young man would not grow arrogant in light of such adoration? I beg you to contemplate that question. To the great dismay of all his lady fans, Hassan remained unimpressed. He courteously acknowledged every broken heart with the dreaded, "Let's be friends." Hassan's mind was occupied with a different matter altogether. You see, he was bankrupt. Zilch is what was in his money sack after a lively escapade in the tavern one morning. He was penniless, broke. There were no more dinars. He squandered his whole entire fortune left to him by his father on wine and gallant company. He decided he wants to travel to strange lands, hoping to seek fortune. Some people have all the luck in the world, no matter how foolishly they behaved. And Hassan of Basra was a member of this clan of lucky clowns that all of us hate but secretly wish we could belong to. Everywhere he sailed, he was met with new friends and admirers. Kings lavished him with gifts in return for a charming conversation. Treasure, oh, he effortlessly found it one day. He was just walking in an abandoned field. He kicked a rock for sport, and there it was, a treasure trove of jewels. Just like that. Yet there was something else that Hassan found on his adventure, something that he didn't know he was looking for, and yet the minute his sight beheld, he couldn't live without it. Gazing at the sea one afternoon, he was impressed by the graceful movements of a large bird, and as the bird landed close to the beach, it shed what turned out to be a feather dress, and out ran a naked woman running towards the waves, hoping to get a swim. This woman outdid all humans in beauty. Her mouth was more magical than Solomon's seal. Her hair was blacker than the night. Her lips were like corals from the bottom of the ocean, and her teeth looked like strung pearls. Her midriff was full of folds and bumps, and her thighs were round and plump like marble columns. But what mesmerized Hassan the most was what lay between her thighs, a round dome that looked like a silver bowl, or maybe something made out of crystal. Smitten with love, Hassan stole the beauty's feather dress and hid it in a tomb. Deprived of her wings, the beauty became Hassan's captive. Hassan installed her in a palace in Basra and lavished her with silks and jewels and every manner of fine gift he could think of. The lady remained completely unimpressed. He wasn't able to even get a single grateful glance from this lady. Hassan doubled his charm and adorned his visage with his most magical smile. But none of his usual magic worked in this rarest of situations. Hassan went mad. He was at his wits' end. This was a challenge he never faced before. Desperate times require desperate measures. And so Hassan wrote love poetry and learned to play the flute. He stood under the window of his beloved and serenaded her with tender words of affection that would melt the non-existing heart of a rock. The lady sighed, rolled her eyes, and complained that his singing gave her a headache. Upon consulting with one of his wiser lady friends, she gave him the advice that he should hold a big party at his palace and introduce all his lady friends to the lady with the feather dress. This advice seemed counterintuitive to Hassan, but he at that point was willing to try anything. So a big banquet was held, and all the women from Basra and neighboring villages attended. Each one wore her finest clothing, and all of them stood around like a bevy of widows, giving each other support in their darkest hour. Each one was curious to see this beauty that had stolen the heart of their idol. During the banquet, the lady with the feather dress looked around the room, and she saw women of all shapes and sizes and ages and social statuses and different fashion senses. And all of them had one thing in common. Each one wished she could be in her shoes. And when she saw the looks of envy in their eyes, something stirred in her chest. Was it pride? Was it the need to be adored? Or was it some other calamity to which we have not learned to assign a name yet? I don't know. However, the trick worked, and shortly after that party, a wedding day was set. The honeymoon lasted 40 days and 40 nights, and Hassan became the happiest human being on planet Earth. Together, they had 2 sons. And after about 2 years of happiness and adoration from both sides, Hassan relaxed his attentive attention to his wife and decided it was time to travel again, seeking more fortunes and more adventures. And one day, coming from a long trip, he came to his palace and realized his wife, who never stopped looking for her dress, found it one day and flown away with both their sons. Now, at this point, I'm going to interrupt their story to let you know that as an author, I am a huge fan of frame story as a literary device. The idea of using a story within a story. I love this literary device so much. I've used it in all my novels. And this story, the story I'm telling you now, I've used it in the novel Graffiti Hack. Now, so if you're curious how this story resonates in a bigger story and a more contemporary setting, read Graffiti Hack. Also, if you want to continue this conversation, I invite you to join my mailing list. Go to ihave.com/free-ebook and sign up there. But back to Basra. When the lady with the feather dress found her dress, initially she thought, I'll just try it on for old time's sake. But then when she felt the flight motion in her body and she felt the wind in her face, a flood of emotion overcame her. And all these old memories came flooding through her mind. She grabbed both her sons in her bosom, and initially she was just walking very gracefully and then dancing, and then she found herself floating in the air. And she found herself saying out loud to herself, I thought I was happy. I thought I had it all. And while holding both her sons, she flew all the way back to their homeland of Wak Wak. Before she left a message for her husband saying, you may come and join me if you have the courage to do so. No one knew then, and still less know now, where the magical, mysterious land of Wak Wak is located. Some say it is located close to China. The ancient Arab historian Masroudi, the author of Golden Meadows, situated it in East Africa beyond Zanzibar. Marco Polo described Wak Wak as the land of faraway strangeness and located it somewhere close to the Amazon forest and called it the Female Island. Others said it's somewhere near Madagascar or Malaga, but in the end, nobody really knows where it is located. Night after night, Hassan of Basra wept until he fainted. And during the day, he wandered the street of Basra like a dervish in a daze. 2 months passed, and the perpetual bewilderment of Hassan was continued, until one day a magical genie heard of Hassan's story and was gripped by a very rare sentiment of compassion, and appeared before Hassan in the middle of the night and revealed to him the secret of how to get to the land of Wak Wak. Didn't I tell you that some people have all the luck in the world? Now, unfortunately, I cannot reveal to you what was said that night between the genie and Hassan, because every man who hears about the location of Wak Wak feels irresistibly drawn to go there, but very few can survive the experience. Suffice to say that Hassan had to cross 7 valleys and climb 7 mountains and sail across the ocean and cross a river, and along the way he was beaten and robbed and had to solve riddles. He was even sexually molested by a giantess that kept him hostage in a cage, but somehow through some miracle he survived all this and ended up half dead in the lush gardens of Wak Wak. Now, this is a land that's ruled by women and is guarded by amazing beauties that are trained in the art of archery. Now, most people, if they've arrived to this land, they'd be just dazzled by this sight and immediately outed as foreigners. However, Hassan had eyes only for his wife and 2 sons, and as such, he was able to mingle unnoticed. He even made friends with the natives. And one of his new friends in the land of Wak Wak was able to reveal to him, after he confided with his new friend, this new friend was able to tell him, "Oh, your wife is not a mere inhabitant of the land of Wak Wak. Your wife is a princess and a sister to the queen." When Hassan heard this, he immediately ran towards the royal palace and asked for an audience with the queen. Before the queen, he asked to have an audience with his wife. The queen of Wak Wak laughed and laughed and laughed and said to Hassan, "You really think that any woman in this world would choose to leave the land of Wak Wak and go and live in such unrefined company out of her own free will?" She wasn't expecting a response. You, in your dinky little palace, out in that stinky town called Basra, that land where the sand dunes make you lose your eyesight and the humidity makes your hair get kinky and all that heat affects your brain and you stop thinking correctly. And then there's all that disgusting food that you people eat. Ugh. Anyway, so Hassan was immediately arrested and thrown in jail, and shackles adorned his hands and his feet the way jewelry adorns a bride on her wedding night. When the lady with the feather dress heard of Hassan's predicament, a very strange feeling swirled in her chest. Was it love? Was it compassion? Or was she simply touched that somebody was willing to risk life and limb just to come and see her again? Who knows? But when the lady with the feather dress heard of what happened to her husband, she took out the feather dress, held both her sons and her husband in her bosom, and flew away, all the way to Basra, where they lived happily ever after as a family. And that is how Hassan of Basra learned the important life lesson that when a woman sets her mind to something, it is useless to stand in her way.